Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career, career guidance and career mentoring. Please welcome your host Dr. S.B. Mishra to the show and happy listening.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to one more episode on India Career Center. We have a very special guest today, Biren Anshu. Biren and I happen to work together in JCB India Limited. And during his tenure and my tenure, which was a common tenure for us, I have seen Biren doing a lot of interesting new initiatives in JCB, including a lot of training and development initiatives. And I think I've been also fortunate to be part of that initiative as well. Got myself exposed to a global training program in the headquarters of JCB. So uh, Biren has a great influence on my personal growth as well, my professional growth as well. Just to give a brief about Biren, Biren is now the chief HR officer in HiTec Robotics Systems. It's a new age company which is into robotics and automation. Um, of course, we'll learn more about this particular company as we go along. Also, I mean, Biren is a pass out from XLRI and interestingly has transitioned across a lot of different industry and currently he's working with this organization called HiTec Robotics. Biren, thank you for accepting the invitation and talking to our listeners and viewers on the issue of how HR is going to be, you know, adapting itself and transitioning into the 21st century requirements. It's a topic which is very important, and I thought no better person than you to really talk about this subject. Welcome, Biren.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Thank you, all the listeners who are part of this podcast. You and I go a long way back. Thank you for those kind words. I remember you as one of the person uh, who took up all the courses in right earnest. There are people who participate a program because they are being asked to participate. And then there are ones who make the most of it because they see value out of the program. And you were one of the person who actually created value, not just for yourself, but for organization like JCB. So thank you. Happy to be here. And let's see how the discussion flows today on some very interesting thoughts and subjects that we have before us.
Excellent. So, Biren, as I do with all my guests, I always ask them to talk us through their early life, early education, and early professional career, so that a lot of our young listeners and viewers who are going to watch this video or going to listen to us will try to connect with your personal journey as well. And maybe some of that could be the inspiration for them to take them in their lives as well. So, take us through your early life, your early education, and early profession.
Sure. So I represent the average Indian middle class, those who were born in late 70s. I grew up in a place called Patna. Born and brought up, had my early schooling there. Three kids in a family, and all three of us went to the same school, St. Michael's. It's one of the oldest school in eastern part of our country, founded in 1858. Rich history. Had got to learn about what And since it was an all boys school, it really gave me a very good sense of what education in those times were all about. Um, so had my schooling from St. Michael's. Post that, I did my graduation in mathematics honors from BHU, and that was the first time when I moved to a different city, not for vacation purpose but for education purpose. And Banaras has its own charm. You have a very spiritual feeling about the place. There's a lot of chaos around during those times, and that chaos had a spiritual sense to it. Initially, you'd find it difficult to understand, but slowly the city grows on you. And each lane and bylane has a history that once you start understanding it, you get an education and you get a humbling feeling about where you are in terms of your own existence. So those questions were something that I got probed, and that was a city which also exposed me to yoga, and I picked up aside an interest in sports that I regularly had. Yoga was something that I got introduced. Yoga and Ayurveda, these were two things that I got introduced because somewhere that city has a way of introducing these subjects to you. Although I was a science student, these interests continue to remain with me, and till date, they are part of me and my family, as so to speak. Post graduation was from Jamshedpur. This was from XLRI, and I think being a maths honors guy going to Excel, that is often a question that people have asked. I think the simple answer to that is at that point of time, I think Excel was known as one of the better B schools when it came to studying human behavior, and that was an area of interest to me. I realized that when I was in Banaras, I realized that culture is far deeper than what is spoken. It's something that you experience. Human behavior is not something that you can easily understand just because two people are talking and listening to each other. There's far greater depth and understanding that is required. And much like there's mathematical science, there's human science also. And if I understand that piece, it would help me in the career that I intend and choose to have in later years. So Excel was one of the natural choices to have. And post that, worked across industry. Started my career in automotive with Maruti Suzuki, then FMCG, Reckitt Benckiser, retail. So both in international multinational corporations and Indian multinational corporations, I've had the experience of working, contributing, and growing as I contributed in various roles. And today I'm with HiTec Robotics, which is an organization which is into solving some of the problems that we are noticing in our country with respect to inter and intralogistics automation. And it's in a domain which is evolving, intelligent robot, AI, ML. It's a field that I'm not much aware of, to be honest. I'm also learning as I'm trying to work with the organization, and hopefully um, we'll be able to solve some of the problems which we are noticing in this space through the automation that this company is creating for our country.
Excellent.
So that's briefly my life journey, professional journey in bits and pieces that I shared.
So, as moving from being a honors graduate in mathematics, which is kind of pure science in a way, from there to move on to HR as a function for your postgraduate course. Was that transition which really was taking place during your Banaras days itself, or was there really a trigger point which caused that change from moving from mathematics to human resources as the post graduation program for you?
Sometimes things become sensible post facto. I would tend to be honest here, saying that it appeared right to me, given how my overall sense of which direction I wanted to take for myself. It felt as if this is a direction that I should take. And as I grew in this space, as I worked in this function, I realized that I don't think the understanding about human behavior is restricted to HR as a function. It is something that is true to a large scale in the organization, extended to society and communities. It is as much true extended to how consumer behavior operates. It is true in that domain. And uh, if we have to get things moving, you need to work with human beings. You can make the most intelligent robots, but where it would get applied, which problems it would require to be solved, you would again need to consult with those technologists, scientists, and operations guy who would be professionals in their own right. And that there's some extent of human behavior and human sciences that are involved in trying to consult, in trying to provide solutions, in trying to solve. I think post facto, things have become far more sensible in terms of why this field is so much relevant. Although I do believe that some of the HR professionals in this field don't understand it to the extent that it should be understood. But that being said, I truly believe that once you understand, you can understand how it can solve some of the problems in across domains that you notice. So yeah, post facto is the reason why I would say that I think I would believe that it made all the more sense that I took this field. And the fact that it was XLRI, one of the best institute, it made sense to be there and see what the institute had to offer in terms of education and why it produces some of the better brains in this space. So yeah. Things
Yeah,
things
completely.
added up at that point of time, and it only made more sense as I progressed in my life and career.
I agree. I think ultimately we all have to deal with people every day, and irrespective whether we are in the HR profession or otherwise. In anything, we have to deal with people, and understanding how to deal with people is something which is basically required for all of us. So, in a way,
From our
yes.
families to our home to spaces in our neighborhoods to spaces in organization to the dynamics that is at work between customer stakeholders and organization, I think somewhere or the other that element of understanding is extremely important. It's very commonsensical though, but we all know common sense is not all that common. We tend
Yes.
to have our other interest, which always cloud our judgment, and then and that I think is the distinction that we need to make. That's where the true value of this function and true value of what the subject has to offer uh, can be truly understood.
Great. And also, I think as you rightly said, you studied from XLRI, so one of the best known institutions in India and possibly also across the world for that particular subject. So there's no doubt. And when you study in a very good institution, you are surrounded by the best brains, and obviously you're also taught in the best possible manner. I think that role really also expands your own horizon. So that also, I think that also clearly shows on your later part of your journey in the profession. I mean, which is going to be my next question. I mean, what's interesting is that you have started from automobile, then moved on to retail, then moved on to various industries. I think you walked across already 6, 7 different types of industries, as you mentioned earlier also in the introduction. Um, Interestingly, those are all related to your own domain function, which is the HR. Uh, I would say this is like a dream run for any HR profession to have been able to expose to all these industries at a fairly young level. I would say, and I would put that in that context also. Um, So take us through as to how really you transitioned across. I mean, was it something which you really thought of doing it, or again you say that you were at the right time at the right place? How it really panned out?
I think on retrospect, when I look at how my career choices have been, I go back to two things. One, whether it made sense at that point of time. If in the campus when automotive Maruti had come to the campus, it made sense. It was the largest player in the automobile space, and being the largest player, uh, we know that in that, and as the industry grew, it produced, much like Unilever has produced a number of CEOs in FMCG domain. Automotive space, the CEOs have come from Maruti Suzuki only. It made sense to be part of an organization had that was creating product which were getting absorbed by the industry. So at that point of time, it made sense to be there, and I was glad that I became part of the company. In my initial role in OD, some of the large scale interactive processes with GE we used to talk about, we conducted them in Maruti, and this was a time when actually the company was transitioning from a PSU mindset to a competitive industry operating organization. And I was part of that journey that the company took from being unlisted to a listed organization to looking at close to $1 billion expansion plans. And that exposure gave me a list of situations and problems to be solved. And those were my early, how should I, stepping stones into you must be chasing the right problems in your role when you're working in an organization. If you're solving them, then it adds value to the organization, it adds values to you as a professional. And that I think became the basis of how I made my career choices. So post my experience of working in a Japanese company, Reckitt Benckiser happened. This was a complete shift from a Japanese organization to a Europe-based MNC, and the culture were completely poles apart. Very aggressive, very business focused. Uh, Yet it taught me that okay, these two organizations are there in their own might and right, performing very well in business, and business has a way of accepting both the norms and behavior as far as business is concerned. And that was a good experience and exposure for me to look at what could be the nature of problems that I can solve in an international MNC. And that I think is one of the fundamental basis of how I have looked at my career shift. I try to move across different industries to see what changes and what doesn't change. What are the problems that the company has in the industry, in the company that I can be equipped to solve, and that is the element that followed in my course that I took. Oberoi again, hospitality. Normally in that industry, people always look at somebody who comes from the industry before he or she is picked up. I think after working for almost 11 years, over a decade outside of the industry, I was picked up, and the reason why they picked up was the different industry experience that I had, because Oberoi wanted to transition into practices that people practices that were best from across industry, and they wanted somebody who had seen and done that, and therefore the role that I had there also made sense for me to be there. So yeah, so that was another experience which was a corporate experience working across different hotels. I had not known that hotels can also be unionized until then. Half of the hotels were unionized, and it gave me a very good grounding about industrial relations and employee relations in a different way, which perhaps was something that I had not been exposed to in my earlier stint. So that I think to my message to young professionals who are entering and starting their career is one, um, follow your heart in terms of what nature of problem that you think you want to solve. You can end up becoming a person who who can maintain processes and systems, or you can be an organization builder. And you can build an organization when you're looking at solving certain problems. You can be an organization builder when you change the status quo for better. You can also change the status quo for worse. There are
Yes.
leaders and there are people who do that, who pull the organization backwards. I think the idea here is that how can you create benchmarks, set benchmarks, and be better version of you, better version of your function, be create better version of the organization, and that those are builder profiles. Uh, and if you attempt doing that, you'll find your ability to solve complex, difficult situations much better. And that's a skill to pick post your education and qualification. It's something that you're thrown into different contexts and situations and problems, and you become better. You become more learned. You become more humble. You become more accepting. Um, and that,
Yeah.
I think, is a message to colleagues who would be listening to this podcast, that focus on that. They become a builder. Become try to look at what could be a problem that you have not attempted before, and borrow from your experience, learn from perspective, learn from others, and then solve them. That will strengthen you. That will make you better.
I picked up one thing. What you said here is chase the right problem and try to solve it. I think that's a very strong message. So I really encourage young people who are listening to this to really anchor this thought in their mind. And then after Oberoi, JCB happened, right? So take us through that journey also. I mean, from hotel industry to a construction equipment industry, how that change happened.
Again, I think I was doing very well in Oberoi Group. Some of the changes, some of the work that needed to be introduced, those were introduced, and uh, I think I still maintain that as an organization, that is one company that one must work. It's the heart of the organization at Oberoi is driven by people, and hats off to Vikram Oberoi, PRS Oberoi, and Arjun Oberoi for creating an institution that creates remarkable experience for guest and customer, not just in India, but guests across the globe. And that is the reason why you have uh, that niche segment of luxury where they operate, and they are compared to the best globally, not just in India. So that learning is something that continues to remain with me. And when GCP happened, I think I was not actively looking for a job or a role, but the when the consultant and the team approached, they were looking at people from across industry experience. They were looking at somebody who can come in and work in an industry leader like JCB and address some of the uh, growth led problems or situations that were arising. And to me, it appeared to be a good space to come and contribute. And that during conversation that followed with HR, with operations head, and with MD, it made sense that the intent is there. I always look at what is the intent of the organization in terms of uh, the direction of change that they are stating, and that you can figure out during a conversation. Sometimes words can be misleading. Sometimes the job description can be overly stating the promise. But when you're talking one to one, during that conversation, you actually get a sense of how honest the other person is in terms of the context of business that they are in terms of the problems that they are facing, and in terms of whether tomorrow when you start attending those changes, there will be sponsorship coming for those changes or not. I think those you pick up when you are in a one-to-one situation. That's something that you sense uh, when you're connecting with the individual. And that, again, I repeat, is an important understanding and a skill that you pick up as you engage with various situations, uh, various leaders and people in your life, and that is an important skill to pick up when if you're looking at a long-term professional growth, a career in the industry. Leaders who are good are able to make sense very quickly. They're able to understand what is not being said and why it is not being said. That sense making is important to me.
One thread which comes out from this description of your various stints with different industries that you are somebody who is always trying to put yourself into a situation which is out of your comfort zone. I think that is what actually has helped you to really grow in different direction in different industries. So I mean, you could have just continued to stay in one particular organization and also probably grown there as well. But I think you have always tried to challenge yourself and put yourself in discomfort into a completely new environment and trying to pick up learning from there. I mean, in the introduction, you said you're trying to learn about the new company which you're currently working with. So, which is quite amazing. I think this is a big learning for all young people. I mean, what do you say about that?
I think that's an important observation. Good that you pointed out. I think I'll pick that up in my future conversations with on this topic. I think it goes back to the point that I was alluding to earlier. You can make a choice to be a builder, somebody who creates and creates those changes and stabilizes the changes. That is one set of roles and profile that exists, and the other is you can choose to become a have a career in maintaining what has been created earlier, and that is also a skill set. Both are equally important in an organization. And an organization will always be a pyramid. However, if you're trying to look at you becoming a leader in the organization uh, and move to pinnacle positions in the road, you will have to chase those builder profiles, builder situations, builder problems. And yes, it is true that I have always moved away from comfort zone, but I was not uncomfortable in moving away from to what would appear as a uncomfort zone. Those situations, those new contexts awed me. It was something that excited me. It was something that I know it is going to put me in certain level of hard work and effort in the initial few months and perhaps a year. And trust me, organizations differ. I remember the same changes that took for me to drive in JCB a year. For Oberoi Group, it was almost 2 to 3 years because the culture was different, the context was different. You can, but you must remain honest to the role that you have been brought. You must remain honest to the fact that even if your MD or your immediate boss is not asking those problem to be solved, although they may have talked about it, but the immediate priorities of business would have taken that attention away. You know that problem is still out there, and if you don't address it, it does not benefit the organization. And that I think is something that you must always keep in mind, and it will discomfort you. But in the end, you must be fair to the organization and employees and drive those changes forward. And as and when that happens, you become better. The organization becomes better, and you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very well said. So, taking our conversation forward, the global trends like digitization, decarbonization, population growth, and aging, and energy security. I think these are very, very big trends which are happening and panning out. I think they are evolving with every passing year, and that is going to deeply impact the way we all our lives are. And obviously, that's going to also impact the future of work, the future of the way we live. So, how do you see that from the HR perspective? These global trends, how they are impacting the HR as a function, and how it is going to evolve? I mean, how do you see that from your perspective?
See, I think There are a couple of mega trends that are happening in front of us. It's important to understand how it's impacting the societies and nature of business and therefore the nature of work. We know that um, this generation has access to information. There's an information revolution that has happened. And that is more how it is being accessed. A young kid today has access to, I think, 3 or 4 devices as compared to 20 years back when you had to really uh, find a laptop, not a laptop, but a PC, and then search and then figure out which world you are living in. Or the books would be the access to figuring out, a newspaper would be the access. Today, it is instant information. If something is happening in Ukraine in a smaller city, um, and after 6 months of war, there's a sense of stability. You find Indian students going back to the same country and then starting their medical practice. So that information is not available. In 10 years back, that situation did not exist. When COVID followed, the entire pressure on supply chain and how the world is dependent on China came to the fore. Cost could be a way of doing business, but you cannot be dependent on one country for your entire sourcing supply chain needs. And that is triggering a set of uh, actions by global companies that are out there. And that will create a set of jobs in India, in East Asia, and other markets where companies are now moving away from their dependency on supply chain. Um, Similarly, there is a huge shift that is happening globally in terms of tremendous focus on how you are promoting. There was a time when globalization was talk of the town, but there's an increasing focus on localization. People are trying to be self-dependent in their own operations in their own home places. Movement of labor across nations and across countries um, had a certain swing. During COVID, it came to a stop. Um, and then the final word is still not been written yet. You have in Australia where there's a massive shortage of labor. You have Canada, which is still looking at people from outside because of hands not being there. You have countries like Germany and Japan, which has an aging population and is looking at what could be the nature of automation that could drive the work at a lower level of operation. So, country and globally, these changes need to be understood, and that has an impact on the kind of work that will get created in different economies, different jobs. And it is true that automation will create almost 90 million jobs in next 5 to 6 years. At the same time, there will be job losses that will also happen. So the young audience who is out there listening, or the audience which is already engaged in employment, the question is: Are you looking at the nature of? Are you understanding these contextual changes or not? And therefore, are you picking up the skills which are closer to the skills where the jobs will be created? And if that reflection and seeking of answer is there, and if you're making that effort towards moving towards that kind of job, you would not only secure next 5 years of gainful employment for yourself, but you'll also be in a position wherein the change will not cause disruption in you and your own life. So that's more a message for what's in it for me to people who are listening to this podcast. I think that is something I also truly try to look at and follow. Am I doing the job in the direction in which the world is evolving? Uh, if the answer is yes, then it gives a better satisfaction, because then you don't have to make that extra effort, because the energy of the organization, business, industry, country is moving in that space. And if you are getting in that, then you're also moving the organization and people around in that direction. So that would be one message that I would give people, that look at how the context is shifting. And it always changes. It changed 10 years back, it changed 20 years back, it changed 30 years back. Understand the context in which you are living, and understand the industry that you are operating, and then make the choice in terms of which role that you want to enter into in that organization. If you are entering and starting your career, and if you have already started your career at a different stage of your life, then make that reflection and choice accordingly. If you're not making that choice, you would not be able to understand why something has happened around you, and you may be missing the bus. And we go back to that famous book, Who Moved My Cheese? Somebody else would have moved your cheese. Because things were happening and you were not noticing. And that goes back to my earlier point. Sense making, common sense. It's always out there. पता चलते रहता है कि ये चीजें बदल रही हैं.
That's
Am
right.
I reading? Am I experiencing? Am I listening? And if yes, attempt. It not be a major shift that you have to do on a daily basis. It was a smaller little shift that you do, and you'd find that you move in the right direction.
My next question I had not really planned, but this is something which I thought I'll ask you impromptu.
Please.
You mentioned about, especially this is a context I am talking because I think a lot of professionals who are in different levels of their professional life will be impacted. Definitely by 2030, the world will be different. So we will have to get ready for that. Now, in India, especially in the formal sector, the employability formal sector, uh, the concept of side hustle is something which is not really accepted. I think it is not legally accepted. I don't know what is the legal context. Obviously, I'm not the expert in that. But organizations in India who are operating in India do not accept or like the concept of side hustle or mood lighting. I think recently there was a controversy on the Twitter also, which was related to Wipro. Um, so, as a HR person, and you know that things are going to evolve over a period of time, and which is why picking up skills or knowledge about something which are future oriented is something which I personally feel that organizations should actually encourage people so that they are also ensuring that the people within the organizations are getting future ready. Uh, but I do not know whether that context of change will really happen sooner in India. But what is your personal opinion? I do not want you to answer on behalf of your current organization. I want you to answer it as a HR professional, as a
No,
professional.
I'm glad that you asked this question. I'm glad that you asked this question. See, the nature of business is that you have you're always chasing numbers, and that number has to be something that looks good for stakeholders, investors, and value changers. And that is the reality that is today. So that is one reality that exists. The other reality that also exists is the fact that when an organization gets created, at the point when it was created, there was a certain situation or problem or context that the founder, owner, promoter would have tried to solve. And once that problem has been solved, then you get into the mode of chasing the numbers, and somewhere on the line, you become bigger, larger, and a celebrated company for stockholders, for Sensex, Nasdaq, whatever you want to call it. But then there are other changes that are also happening. Those changes are also something uh, that are slowly creeping in societies, in economics. And one such changes that is happening today in the world out there is the gig work that has happened. COVID has taught us that work can be done from anywhere, from any location. That that possibility is something that is very much there. COVID has also taught people that you need to be more cautious and caring about your own life and family. As a person, as a individual, when things go rough, you are the breadwinner for your family. You are the caregiver for your family, and you have to be out there. There are organizations which did a splendid job, and there are organizations that took a shortcut, short circuit route of um, cost cutting and resultant actions. Those were also there, and that also speaks about the character of the organization, so on and so forth. I don't want to go into that. We are also noticing what government of India has planned to do with respect to the labor code changes. It is formalized gig workforce as a formal wage of employment. I think the larger organizations would be slow to adopt in what's happening, accepting of side hustle. But smaller organizations and the startup economies that are getting created, I have a feeling, based on what I'm noticing and talking to people, that this whole idea that people are now wanting to make a gainful choice basis what interests them in terms of their time, commitment, and career, and they will be determined about that choice is out there, and that would be acknowledged by the new age companies and the new companies that are getting created. Sometimes it makes sense to have a floating gig workforce in place because that is less of a cost from a business front to carry for you. You need not engage a permanent headcount for performing a job that may not last for 1 year or 2 year. In those situations, it makes sense to have such arrangements. And if somebody who has a skill set in that domain and that skill set can be deployed in 5 different organizations, why not accept it? Let that thing be an acceptable form of employment, and that needs to be supported. If industry doesn't evolve and support, you would not be making making benefit out of what's emerging as a trend in months and years to follow from now. I think there's a lot of hope there. My net, if I were to talk about it, companies which are willing to accept and acknowledge would be the companies that I have a feeling will do better. Established organizations, large organizations with deep pockets will still be slow and will like to enforce their view and way of work to the limited audience. But trust me, though there's enough and many organizations out there, and there are enough and many employees out there who are determined that they want to have a life of their own calling and choice, and there is space for them as well. And that ecosystem and space will be very vibrant in terms of how it would create certain workplace practices that will also get formalized at some point of time by the established organization, large scale organization. So those trends are, I think it's something that is very real. You have companies, professionals who are posting work on those open forums, and people are bidding for those jobs and performing as per the bid on those open forums. And I know that I can get a job done from somebody sitting in Philippines or Dubai for a small nature of consulting that I need to get done. It can be performed through those platform sites. So those channels are already getting created. Whether we accept it or not is something that will depend on the stage and life of those organizations and the views with which they operate. But sooner or later, I think it will be more formalized, more sooner than later.
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, to my all young students, I mean, possibly people who are in 8th, 9th grade, I actually talk about this concept that in their lifetime, they are going to see a shift from job to contracts. And which is why I think all of them have to understand the difference between doing a full-time job and a multiple number of contracts, and hence create that entrepreneurial mindset also, because I think our young children are going to see a world which will have multiple contracts as a regular thing, and possibly the regular full-time jobs will be there. I'm not saying that jobs will be totally out, but then I think it'll drastically reduce and reform itself.
And coming back to the point, see, the generation out there, which is in class 8, in terms of their hierarchy of needs, is in a very different place. They are not saying roti kapda makan. They already have makan. They have seen the struggles of the parents in creating those assets. I know people who get into jobs, their first priority is ki pehla vacation kahan jana hai. They're not seeking कि मैं पैसा इकट्ठा करके एक घर में खरीदूं या फिर एक कार, एक asset build करूं. They are chasing those experiences, and those people are quite determined about it. And if they are determined about it, that will also determine how organizations will need to operate and acknowledge those opinions. The sooner it is acknowledged, the sooner it is formalized, uh, the better it is, because that's the shift that is happening in society. Whether it is India or abroad, it's common. The behavior, the norms are very similar.
Yeah.
And I think, like you were saying, it would make sense that this gets supported.
Yeah. Yeah, I think India is in a very typical situation. I will give you two sets of data.
Yes.
One set of data is from the population, census. Of course, this is a public data which is available also. One can Google and find out. Between 97 and 2011, we have got about 36 crore of young people who are at different stages of their education or professional career. I think this is the cohort which will be, which is also known as the demographic dividend for India. Uh, at the same time, these cohort are also going to get the intense amount of competition for everything. I mean, starting from education, going forward into their professional careers also. That's one part of the data. The second part of the data is that if you look at India, CMI data, which captures all the economic data of India, as per that, our formal employability sector, it employs about less than 10% of the employable people in India, and balance 90% are either in agriculture or in the informal sector. So, if we combine these two subjects, I think we are looking at a highly complex situation. And as a HR person, what is that? How do you see that this evolve into a proper solution? Because to be honest, I got two young children at home, teenagers. You have got young kids at home, so how these kids are going to get into a professional career in their by 2030 and beyond is something which I have not really been able to figure out very clearly, because how the transition is going to happen for India to really move from 10% of formal employability to, I don't know, maybe 30-40% of formal employability. Will that really, is that something which you hope as a HR profession really happening, panning out?
I think it's a interesting question, and I'm not an expert in the subject, but I can attempt to uh, paint a picture of future. See, there's the if I were to break this whole thing into two sets, demand and supply, we know that the demographic dividend is in our favor. We are a net positive country in terms of the youth out there, which means that the demand for consumption will come from the group that is out there. The more heads there's a demand, the consumption will happen. And if that is there, then the supply side of companies and services that also will need to be created. From being a under $3 trillion economy to becoming a $5 trillion economy to a reasonable 10 and $20 trillion economy. I think unlike America, where consumption is in excess of what is required, in our kind of situation, the consumption would be what is required, and therefore that will create those nature of companies which will supply, and that will create the nature of jobs in our. The question for the entrepreneurs and people who are creating jobs is, are they creating jobs in the right space and segment? You have no I do believe that everybody has a right to gainful employment. I also believe that depending on uh, your capability to acquire qualification and get educated to the right level, you must have jobs in sync with your aspiration and skill set ability. And if those jobs are created, then only you can get the jobs. Otherwise, the competition would be such that you may land up being overqualified and doing a job of a service or a delivery guy. End of the day, that is important that you are getting the gainful employment. But what is also important is what is the nature of industries, nature of companies, and nature of problems that are being solved in the country, which is creating the right set of jobs. Are you in the value chain of job creation, value chain of industry getting created at a higher order or at a lower order? If you're on a lower order, lower nature of jobs will get created. If you're creating industry in a higher order jobs will be created. I'll just come back to where I am today as an organization. I think it's a company which has upward of 100 patents. It's a truly make in India. It's a company which is into robotics, AI, ML. The jobs that this company would create would be jobs which will require certain set of qualifications acquired, and it will need to be at the research edge of that space so that you're not behind. You're always closer to future. You're always in a way moving with in the direction in which future will be created. When you create such jobs, it requires a higher order of application of the skills, higher order of application of knowledge. I truly believe that, and this is a message to all the young kids and entrepreneurs out there, that our attempt when we are trying to build the country from a $3 trillion economy to a $25 trillion economy, look at what kind of problems that are out there. Look at what kind of industry you can create, and that will require right set of skills, because you will have a 36 crore odd population which will getting qualified and will be available for jobs. We must be creating right set of jobs for them, and that I think is onus across different segments to create those jobs, create those industries. And I think some of the measures that government of India is taking are in that space. And if we continue moving in that space, perhaps when our kids grow up and your kids move into a gainful employment, they will be getting those set of jobs for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you're sounding very hopeful, and so I wish really listeners and viewers who are in different levels of education or who are entrepreneurs, and you rightly said, I think if we are able to try and address the problems of what is required to solve, if we are able to try and to address those problems, then obviously we'll be able to generate enough employability in those particular sectors.
My message is not just about jobs. I think it's also about creating those companies for yourself. Why can't a class 10 passer create an industry and a job for himself or herself? You have those investors, stakeholders who are interested in your idea. It's no longer you need to be a 60-year-old, 40-year-old, and then if you make a pitch, your idea would gain that acceptance. You have Mr. Ratan Tata investing in young startups by kids who are as young as 15 or 16-year-old. You have companies out there, think startup and companies which are actually engaging with school kids and teaching them on how they can make their ideas, how they can monetize their ideas. The idea that you have to chase a job needs to shift from chasing a job to chasing gainful engagement. It could be because you are in a job, or it could be because you have created something for yourself by solving a certain situation problem, and then it is creating jobs for others. Both will do well. Both will need to be done. If we want to become from 3 trillion to a 25 trillion, you need those people who will be creating those industries. Only Adani Ambani can't can't give us that kind of economies of scale for our country. We need our young to also come and be the job creators.
Yeah, agreed. I think so. Between now and 2050, we'll be adding about 1.5 billion people on this earth, which is little more than population of current population of China or India. So, which means that all those, and primarily this increase is coming in the part of Asia and major part of Africa. These are the two places where we are going to grow the population, and rest of the world it is actually degrowing and aging. So if we are adding 1.5 billion people, as Biren said, uh, there'll be more requirement of food, shelter, clothes, infrastructure, entertainment, health, communication, telecommunication, and so on, so forth. So all those uh, services or problems will be required to be solved. And if our young people are able to think in those lines, as to if they are able to address some of this, then we can actually create a society which is actually self-reliant and really trying to give back to the world rather than self-restraining ourselves. Is that okay in that context?
Absolutely, totally agree. I think you have summed it far better than what I would have done. That's the bottom line message. Uh, Stop the next generation to be trained as engineers, medical professionals, or IPS, IAS officers. They are the people who are going to be trained to create jobs for not just for themselves but for others as well. In how they will become part of employment, or they will create the employment, whichever way we want to look at it. And that is the direction for our country. That is the direction in which we'll have to move ahead as we move ahead forward.
Fantastic. I think that's well said. So, I mean, obviously, I cannot leave you without asking you about your own profession and how do you see the HR as a profession shaping up for the future? I think, as we know, I mean, things are evolving every year. Uh, at the same time, I think at the core of it, any business, any organization has to deal with people, and both internally as well as externally for customers. So, how do you see HR as a profession evolving? The reason I'm asking this question is that, as I see, I think HR functions, basic um, functions like giving salary or those mundane tasks. I see them to really get automated more and more, and there'll be very core leadership roles which will remain. I mean, that's how I see it, but I would love to learn from you as to how you see that.
I think everything exists for a reason, whether it is people function or sales, marketing, or operations. They all exist for that one reason, and that reason is the mission or purpose for which the organization has been created. And if we understand that well, if we understand the purpose, if we understand the nature of business, the contribution by respective function becomes clearer to the function and to the organization. Every time when we are not clear about the purpose and understanding of the business, the leader who is actually running the function tends to misunderstand what needs to be done, and then you have various level of organization, dysfunctional politics, interferences, creating life difficult for the organization as much as for employees. So that's one thing that I think it's irrespective of the direction will remain true. Irrespective of the age, it will remain true. In terms of the shift, I do believe that the interplay of technology and function is something that will become more sharper and closer. You will need to be more closer to technology, adopting it, and then deploying it across the organization and being connected. So it's no longer a functional role, I imagine it to be a techno-functional role. You need to acquire those skills and understanding. You will need to be the custodian as a function to the ESG parameters and contributions by the organization. Somebody will need to drive, and that could be the CHRO and the CEO who has to work to ensure that the ESG goals are met. I think the charter by United Nations and is out there. It's something that it nudges countries and companies to look at that, and it cannot just be driven by the CEO. It has to be a combined effort. And today, whether it's customers or stakeholders, they're looking at, or investors, more importantly, they are looking at how well you are contributing to ESG goals. And I think as a function, it goes back to the original idea, whether you understand the purpose and business, and therefore ESG would be one set of efforts that will remain true, that one must understand. And the last piece is, it is again my own experience talking here. Functions like HR, finance, sales, we have to understand the business deeper. I think, and I do believe that people tend to get lost. Immediate task, number हमें बेचना है, करना है, ये policy लाना है, ये करना है. That is not your job. Yes, that is also one of the things that you have to do. But if you don't understand the business, and if you don't make the organization better, if you don't make the existence of people more a place where people be looking up to and be proud, because they're spending so many hours there. You can't do that if you don't understand the context. You don't understand the business. And I think we ought to do a better job here and there. I think these are the three things that will remain important and will continue to remain important.
Yeah, I think two things which you said, it is more of a techno-functional role. I completely agree. I think technology is going to really seep into every function more and more as we go along. That's one. And you also spoke about ESG. I think ESG is going to be big. I think the concept of ESG will also seep into every functional area, because that is something which will be required across all the function. I mean, ESG is a requirement which is going to be more and more important as we go along. I foresee that carbon tax could be a common tax which will probably take over many other tax, and this is something which is going to see the day of the light much sooner than what we think. And as you said, I think HR as a function and the other function roles like the sales, finance, all those roles will remain the core of any organization, but at the same time, they will obviously evolve with technology, and also they'll be...
So, again, connecting it all, see, even the young generation they are not the roti kapda makan wala generation. If you want them to be part of your organization, they will ask those questions. Are you impacting communities better? What are your practices that makes the lives of communities and organizations sustainable? Are you contributing to more carbon footprints? Or are you reducing carbon footprints? Those questions would be there. It makes sense. It's a very commonsensical thing to do the right thing. And we have brought our planet to a stage where we have always been taking from our resources. It's time that we realize our folly and give back to Earth what is its due. Only take what is. It should not be a one-way taking relationship. You have to give back in equal measure. You have to have a sustainable way of living and creating livelihoods. And that, I think, is an important question being asked by as we evolve, as people evolve, and as businesses evolve. It's quite natural to ask those questions. It's important that we do the right job rather than doing a paper job of it.
Great. I think those were very nice words to really conclude this conversation, Biren. always your interactions with you has been always great, and also I enjoyed talking on various topics today on the subject. I think we can spend more and more time on talking about this subject. I think ESG is one specific topic for which we can do another episode.
Absolutely.
That's a big area to talk about. But then I must thank you for investing your time on a Sunday today and sharing all your thoughts.
Absolute pleasure, Dr. Mishra. Absolute pleasure. कैसे एक घंटा निकला पता नहीं चला. I had warned you that my daughter might come back and disturb you. She has not disturbed. She only slided in during the later part of the.
Which is absolutely fine. Which is absolutely
and she has
fine.
been very calm and kind.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my ESG goals is here right behind.
Great. Biren, I'll not hold you further.
Dr. Mishra, absolutely loved it. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to again connecting with you with more such topics. Definitely ESG is something which is on my radar now, and we'll do catch up again for the ESG episode.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.